Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 41st episode of our House of Light playthrough, our first run on YouTube, playing as the archaeologist, and suddenly with a lot of different things to do. So we're enjoying a nice foggy day. We are already reading a good book. This is Sunrise Awakenings. We're also reading Codex Acephali. Now, this one we're not necessarily going to be able to read everything all at once. We're going to have to fold those lessons in over time. And then finally, we're going to be going into the... I think this may actually be the very first time I've used the barber's chair, but we'll be using that to get a Nameday riddle, which will translate into Cartia's Delights. And to be honest, that's really just so that I don't waste the occult scrap. I don't yet have a newspaper, which is one of the regular ways that I can generate an occult scrap. And this is actually a very helpful little memory to have. So other things that we're doing, so I'm bringing Denzel in. This is partly just because I know that I do want to try and level up some skills where I can, but we're short on elements of the soul. I've carried a memory like a flambeau, safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. But I also did toss a whole bunch of elements of the soul into other projects like gardening. And this is just because I need these plants. And they aren't necessarily getting me anything that I need today specifically. So because of the fog, because I'm trying to get Daymare into my planner or my address book, we have a couple of things that upset the balance that I would normally be working with. Denzel rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. Denzel the blacksmith will lend me his strength for the day. Talk. Speak to visitors, assistants, strangers, friends. Speak to Denzel. He might even reply. So we may potentially use him for something like the Fallen Bells. I think there might be another room with Forge. Yeah, the Weeping Chamber. I'm not opposed to it, but it's not the main thing I'm focused on right now. I think probably I would want I'd probably want a less busy day before I start using him to unlock some rooms. And certainly this is a little bit like my stream playthrough as well. This is quite a collection of texts. In theory, I could be getting much further along in terms of my various skills if I just take some time and read these. So it would be nice to sort of just work this list down a little bit, especially because we're not necessarily going to be getting any new books over the next little while. And I also have a few of these that I can probably cure of their maladies if I play my cards right, so to speak. Okay. This is going to take a little bit of organizing, I think. Not as organized as I'd like it to be, but it definitely does the trick. So we don't have the elements of the soul to brew any of this, but it's nice to have... Basically, it's just nice to know that I have the option of brewing this stuff when needed. But the focus today really isn't going to be on preparing the salon. We've got one of the guests already taken care of, and we've got a pretty good game plan in terms of satisfying the others. It's just a matter of getting the right things in place. Now this is interesting with the foresight. I guess I need to hang on to the wild surmise, so I was just trying to think if there was a way I might be able to use this foresight. But obviously this is the sort of thing I would use to boost Denzel in normal circumstances. I might have a think about whether I want to try and move him up. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. And here's the beef joint, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and scale. Where'd you go? Here we go. So I think we actually have the Schloss Jannings will do the trick in terms of satisfying Strathcoin. So Traveling at Night Volume 1, the annotated dream journals of Christopher Alopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist, literate, entertaining, bewildering. The wood lies outside the walls of the mansis. As any student of the histories knows, the mansis has no walls. Alopoli describes how he came to make repeated visits to a dream wood via what he calls silver dreams. Trying to think your way to the wood, he explains, is like thinking your way to being in love, but I did find a secret that helped. So we'll take the occult scrap. We will take the impulse. So we had the tryst. Now, of course, I might hope, hey, can I get, a Nameday riddle out of this? Well, actually, I guess I'd still need to throw my tryst in anyway, but the answer is no. But we can get it out of here, the Edict's Liminal. So conceive a mothy riddle. Edict's Liminal with scholar level moth plus a memory creates a Nameday riddle. Now, we are going to be testing the limits of the time available for the book we're going to be reading, because it's going to take 90 seconds to generate this. But again, I'm not going to tie myself up into knots over this. It's what I've got. It's what I can work with. So, but I do want to... There's a reason why we tried to get that occult scrap in the barber's chair, and that's so that I can add Daymare to the writing case for what you might call an occult correspondence. So we haven't added Hokabald yet just because we are not anywhere near getting the Orpiment Exultant. But will they come when you do call for them? So Daymare, Schloss Nagelsberg, Ruritania. To make an invitation to Daymare sufficiently enticing, you will need at least 3 knock from skills, memories, inks, or anything else. So that's definitely not a challenge for us. We can get that with door and wall. I wasn't sure if Daymare was a 3 or a 5, but it turns out she's a 3 knock. He does a lot with silence, this man. So, foresight, hindsight. We should finish the Sunrise Awakening soon. Honeyscar Jasmine like a dart of sweet fire. So I don't want to spend too much more time taking up Honeyscar Jasmine. I do like the idea of having some in reserve, and that's just so that I can... Sure. That's so that I can brew the tea and still have some set aside. It's kind of the same justification I have for the Fragrant Chalice here. And then the bowl of sea blessed pears, these are an ingredient in several different things, so having pears around is just generally a good idea. I don't think there's any room inside here, so I guess I'll have to put them where I put the beef. So again, these are more nice to have rather than essentials. I do have a bit of a plan to open up the sack of vegetables for, at minimum, for potatoes. And I'm going to take a second here with Denzel. So I just kind of assumed that I wasn't going to be able to use him for a room, but let's actually take the time to see how this might work. So Denzel starts with 2 forge. So then we take the metal, and that would be 2, so that takes him up to 4. So then foresight, which as far as I can tell is the only higher level forge that I have right now. I think anything else will take us quite a bit of effort to get. So we kind of get 6, quote unquote, for free. And then we also have a tool. But in practical terms, all of the tools that we would use would bring them up to 7. Now, it is worth mentioning that Denzel is special in the sense that he can also use metal, right? Unlike some assistants, Denzel can make use of metal. We see that here. We do have the tin, and we also have the, how do I put this? Like, we do have the option of buying more from, it'll take a couple of days, but if I really need, like, I do have the option of pushing him a little bit higher. As always, the question should be, to what end? This comes up quite frequently, I think, when I notice that people tend to talk, like, what's the ideal path through the Tree of Wisdoms? And of course, I don't want to try and pretend that it's not worth planning this stuff out. I don't have a very specific set of things that I want to achieve for the Tree of Wisdoms, but I've got at least I have broad enough categories that I've been reluctant to push my skills past a certain level in this game. But I think it's fair to say that for some people, this will be a game that they only play once. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's not these are the less faithful players of the Secret Histories, or, the ones who don't appreciate the nuance or whatever. Like, life is short. You've got a whole lot of games to play. This is a really wonderful game to enjoy one time through. But of course, it does have the option of showing you the extra stories, maybe twice through because there was the expansion. But so, and I want to be clear, like, I don't necessarily think that this is a game that can only be appreciated the second time. And by that, I mean, it would be unreasonable to expect any player, short of somebody who's basically going to a wiki to be told how to play, it would be unreasonable to expect them to understand how the Tree of Wisdoms works from the start. And this means that they're going to commit some things that maybe with the benefit of hindsight, they wouldn't. And I think, again, the game has text inside of this to more or less enforce. Like, I think this is a very conscious decision. I think there are ways this could have been done to either make it so that people commit things later, or possibly to maybe make it so that they can undo those choices. But I think there's a very conscious decision made that once you commit something, it's there, and that some of your first commitments are going to be things that maybe with hindsight you would have chosen to wait a little bit later in the Tree of Wisdoms for. But to me, I've always kind of allowed that to be something where you get to express a bit of your character. I think the game is enjoyable in the sense that you work your way around the constraints that you find yourself in as you keep moving on. Because generally what I tend to find for the people who are asking about what's the best order to commit the skills, or, how do I handle the Tree of Wisdoms? What's the best way to go through it? What this really just kind of comes down to, first of all, I don't really think a best exists, but I'm always going to say that. It gets boring if I keep saying the same thing over. What I really think this question is getting down to is, at what point do you want to feel lost? Because that point is going to happen, and I think I've done this rant a couple of times, so sorry for those of you who've been listening, very dedicated listeners who get to hear me say this over and over again. But I think this is a point that's worth reiterating. There's going to be a point where all of the rooms, like a good default for me is that for some people, a room with like 6 for the aspect is like, ooh, this is a tough one. I'm going to need to think about it. But of course, anybody who's played for a certain period of time knows that these are table stakes, right? Most of the characters that you can bring in will have, a default of 2. Most memories, there'll usually be at least one kind of memory that will give you 2 for that particular aspect. And then you use one of your elements of the soul to bring that up to 6. So even like a 7 is not that hard. So that'll take you pretty far. But then you start getting to these rooms, right? Like the 11. Now, actually, this one's worth saying. There's an achievement for getting up here. So first of all, this shouldn't be trivial. But like once you start getting to these kinds of rooms, right? Once you're starting to get to some 8s or 11s or something like that, this is the point where people are like, this is impossible. There's no way that I can go. And more importantly, trying to get further into the house with these also is the first time potentially where you're running into challenges that cannot be solved by just adding more elements of the soul, right? And again, this kind of makes sense if you want to think of progression through the level, the house. You know, the deeper and more complicated the mysteries, it's not just a question of more bodies, right? You know, any more that like a factory, once you hit a certain level of production, the answer is just bring in more workers, right? If you have 100 people on a single conveyor belt in a factory, they are getting in each other's way. They are not contributing anything to the process. Instead, is you want a more efficient use of those resources to try and get extra. And in that case, that means you start using some of these skills that you've been putting in to generate more complicated memories, right? The maybe the scholar or even the keeper level memories, again, depending on what you're going for. So to bring this back to the Tree of Wisdoms, the key on this one is there you can actually get pretty far through the Tree of Wisdoms. And of course, once you have more than one element of the soul, you can combine those, and then that will give you one extra point. So, you know, instead of it being a 6, that's your block, maybe it's the 7. Or maybe instead of, you know, the 7, it's now the, because you can add a tool, you know, now 9 is your block. They like, this is too hard for me. But it is also worth noting, right, to go from the 1 to 2, well, you need 2 elements of the soul. So that's not too tough, right? You're down an element of the soul, but you're up the point. So maybe that's a little bit more helpful. To go from like the plus to plus plus, well, now you're actually giving up 3 other elements of the soul, right? Because you need the 2 to get it up to the plus, and then you need that other, then you need the 2 pluses to bring it up to plus plus. And all you're really getting out of that is 1 more element of the soul. So you can see how there's diminishing returns to adding more elements of the soul. The game doesn't completely cut off the benefit to you, but there is a definite limit in terms of the effort that you, in terms of the benefits that you get from those, from that effort. And then the game explicitly says, okay, you're going to have to learn something new once you get to the Shadowed Stair, for instance. So, in any case, ultimately, I think the question about the Tree of Wisdom is like, clearly I am trying to use it opportunistically. I'm trying to commit the languages at the base just because the languages don't give me as much as, say, something like Wolf Stories. But, you know, I'm also not, I'm not doing like the total abstinence from the tree until the house is open, like a previous playthrough. But with all of that in mind, what I was working on was Denzel. So with Denzel, we've got the metal, the foresight, and the tool. So that's basically a 7 to work with. Now, probably the Veiled Goddess Lapsang Suchong is the next one for me to go with. So in terms of a drink, we can add another 2 to that. And this is where it gets a little more complicated. So we can get Denzel up to 9. And I have a few different options here. So first of all, there is the question of food. So, you know, in a pinch, I can give him the almonds and okay, great, we're now at 10. But I'm wondering if I can do better. And I think that would involve cooking something. I do actually have my cookbook in front of me too, so let's take a quick look at that. So Forge goes all the way up to 4, but that would be the Walls of Ys, which that's Meringue and Pyrus Oracle Sinus. So clearly we have it, but it's maybe not the one that I would want to do right away. Okay, this is interesting. So sea pie. So that's a beef. Okay. So I could get him up to 11 without... So this would involve some work. Making a sea pie would involve... Oh, no, sorry. It's King's Luck pie. So I need to make a sea pie and then add pears. So I'm actually giving up quite a bit for that. Okay, that's actually good to know. So 10 is something I can do. 11, let's say, would involve some work. And then, of course, the question would be, is it better for me to make the effort to make a King's Luck pie that I serve to Denzel, or is it better for me to just order the wire? I can sort of answer that by taking a look at TRN. So I probably want to get some more almonds sooner rather than later. Yeah, you know what? And then Cater and Hero. These are the ones who would get me the metal. I just don't recall if they provide tin. I'm pretty sure they don't. Yeah, so they do copper wire. So I should probably be pretty careful about using that tin carelessly. Okay. I wasn't originally going to do this, but I think I'm actually going to restore the metal and level up Denzel to open up the weeping chamber. Carefully mark the creamy paper. Okay, Sunrise Awakenings, an uncharacteristically poignant meditation by the edgelong Trog of Marianid, who later came to Hush House under a variety of other names, often in search of some sort of fight. If light were not silent, it would be music. If music were visible, it would be light. Each day's light, Trog suggests, is faintly touched by the light of every past day, so, in the light of every present day, we may begin to understand something of days to come. At least this appears to be his conclusion, but he stops mid-sentence, apparently having lost patience with the act of writing, or possibly being ambushed. Excuse me. Alright, so that's foresight. I always seem to get surprised by this, but okay, no, we do have revelations. So this is an easy one to put in the consider verb. We just want to get this in the list. So use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Auroral Contemplations is actually quite a helpful one. I'll also go for one last batch of almonds. Better now. Alright, so this is going to be used to read the book. We're going to restore the metal so that I can make Denzel a good worker. And the Codex Acephali, sometimes called the Book of the Clean Skull, the book contains accounts of enlightenments available through the gradual surgical removement of the lobes of the brain. It becomes clear that the processes described are mostly allegorical or metaphorical descriptions of winter techniques for less revolting occult work. Even the metaphors are pretty horrible, though. The author explains adaptations of these techniques with sufficient winter aspect to harvest a mysterious substance described as the rags of the final bone from the remains of almost any animal. So this is the essential Periost recipe. Okay, so we've got two snow stories to work with. Now we need to get the Whist back or the Tryst back for this. But first of all, I want to shelve the correct book. Where are we? I think this would be... No, this is Hindsight. Interesting. Do I not have regrets yet? Foresight, Satisfaction, Fears, Impulses, Intuitions, Hindsight, Confounding Parables, Revelations, Patterns, Contradictions, Gossip, Storms, Regrets. Okay, So, oh, hang on. And there's my almonds, so this shouldn't cost too much. Probably a shilling will do. Complete the order. All right. So for snow stories, it's worth taking a minute here to think how I'm going to make this work. So the first level shouldn't be hard. The second one, in a pinch, I can use the old wound. And it's possible that Denzel may give me something I can work with as well. So it's moon and winter. I need to bring a tryst back, and I need to bring a whist back. Now, one answer I have to this would be... I'll use the water. So a quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink. While the winds chase the clouds chase the sun. So I'll restore a tryst as well for the snow stories. That's kind of assuming that we're going to be able to level up both, but we're so far along in terms of being able to make this happen that I think it's worth even if I have to give up the old wound, I think it's worth it. It's not that hard to use the Edicts Martial to get another old wound. The only real drawback to it is I may waste waste, quote unquote. I may use up a tryst, which I would have otherwise wanted to use for something else. But we can probably combine, I could use the Arab, I could use the metal. Depends on what I want to do during the day, really. But given that I am sort of pulling Denzel out, I do want to make sure that I at least level him up for his, for the rest of his forge aspect. The postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Okay, memories don't last long outside books, but it's made the difference for the day. So we will add the spanners. When you need them, you need them. I can lend my assistants something to help, increasing their abilities. Almost done our haircut. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Auroral Contemplations. To know what will pass and what has passed, the practitioners of this discipline see endings and beginnings, passages and transitions in the same mode as dawn and sunset. Is this the way to the wood? But perhaps the wood is not a suitable place for a librarian. Nameday riddle, a deceptively intricate riddle that might just teach us who we really are. Gervinus van Loren was notoriously fond of these. Okay, so let's get going on the book. I don't have that much time. So I believe it was Carday's Delights. Ah. It's 3 moth, 2 knock. So I put all that effort in for very little benefit. Well, if I have to, I can open up a room off of that, but knowing that this is a moth question, the debate of the 7 cups. So if I had the tryst, I would be able to make that work. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to be coming up short on that. Well, nope, there's a very narrow way that this can work for me. Again, I'm kind of recognizing some limits in terms of what I can get done today, but if I wanted to make a go of it, Well, even then, this gets me to 9. So it's possible I was just completely wrong-headed in terms of how I was thinking about this in the first place. But you know what? This is not a difficult choice to make. Clearly, I'm not going to be able to read the book that I was planning on. You know, shame on me. But this should. And this is the one. Yeah, it won't take moth. Oh no! All right. Man, I really blew this. All right. Well, let's take a minute and think. Out of the inks that I have, let's not even worry about inks. So in terms of basic materials that I can throw at this to make this work. So Shears of the Sisterhood, Nameday Riddle is the best moth that I have to throw at this. Yeah, so Edicts Liminal or Transformations and Liberations, it's all the same at this point. So we're at 7. We can get up to 9. So why did I think I could get to 10 knock? Because Door and Wall's also a 3. Probably I just wasn't thinking straight. Okay, so I guess the question is, do we have any 8 moth books? I think the answer to that is no. Be a shame if I just let this kind of rot into something. It's also funny that I said that I usually use a Nameday Riddle for this, so I must be thinking of something else that I use the... Because, like, basically, because the Nameday Riddle is a temporary memory, it's one that I sort of use as a throwaway if I need that extra point. Honestly, though, at this point, I think it's probably better for me to just accept that I'm not going to be able to do the thing that I wanted rather than trying to chase a particular outcome. So Cardia's Delights is off the table. Fair enough. I can live with that. Any remaining moth texts are ones that these are ones that like are beyond what I can do with the Nameday Riddle. And if I had an ink with a little extra moth, that might change the calculation, but I just don't see how we're going to be able to do that in such a short period of time. So again, rather than try to make some kind of... well, I guess there's one last thing that I can try. If I do Inks of Revelation, I combine a Nameday Riddle, I'll do a Shap just so I can see what's going on. Yeah, Moth Gold Paint really doesn't spark joy. Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit of a shame. I should probably be wrapping up right now, but it'd be such a shame to leave it on a... I won't call it a note of defeat, but to end with this this stumble. So okay, we've got the tool, we've got the memory. I can give him a drink, which I didn't think to pour. We might already have some poured though. I'll double check. Nope. Okay, pour out. Poured out. Oops. Oh, I could have fed him the almonds too. That's not a big deal. So the Shapt, I think I still want to try and bring back a Tryst so that I can try and level up the Snow Stories. But I guess I have the Shapt to earn some money if I need... No, wait, what am I doing? Because I'm already bringing back the... No, I'm already bringing back the Whist. We're fine. The medals for Denzel. If I can't come up with something clever to do with the Shapt, I might just try and generate something with it as well. Alright, down to the Grussians. Inspiration and Determination boosts Forge and Edge. It would be nice. Well, I guess I said I was already going to use the Old Wound in this case, so if I come up short, we'll use that. I deserved a little quiet time. Okay, so this one's a no-brainer. We'll take the Snow Stories and level it up. Again, this doesn't necessarily give me anything that I kind of don't already have access to. So even taking this up to level 3, we'll have, we've got 2, so this will be 4. The moon will be 3, but we have 3 moon from Desires and Dissolutions at 3. We have even more with Edicts Martial. And then for winter, actually, the Ragged Crossroads, no, we may actually be pushing our winter ahead. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, so I was kind of expecting to have a book that I'd be reading right now to try and make some more progress, but this will be a chance for us to... where's my almonds? We'll take this chance to open up another room. So we've got the Weeping Chamber. This does actually have a kind of useful workbench. I'll snag whatever last memories I can get from Denzel, because we only need 30 seconds to be able to level something up anyway. And again, I'll probably have to say goodbye to the Nameday riddle, but it's not a catastrophe, let's say. So fixing and mending, there's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 worth of odd jobs. And I know the videos have been going a little bit later today, but we do have one last upgrade to do, so I figure I can at least queue that up, and then we can go through the night at the start of the next video, even if I fast forward through it. Okay, so we're already at 10 for the Forge with Denzel, so in this case we'll have a chat with him. We should be able to get 2 of these out of the way, and the hope here is that we wind up with, you know, a hindsight or I don't know, a intuition. Those are a little bit more rare, but the idea here is we're hoping that he'll give me a memory that doesn't involve giving up the Old Wound. If I have to give up the Old Wound, it's not the end of the world. I also keep forgetting that it's got 3 winter. I always keep thinking it's primarily moon, but... Okay. Fear doesn't exactly do anything for me, but... we'll work with it. All right, night has fallen, dawn will come soon. This will actually be testing the edges of what we can realistically expect from the Tryst. I may wind up losing this overnight, but I'm willing to take the risk on this one if it saves me the... I figure it's either the Tryst is going to be given up to generate the Old Wound, or the Tryst will be used to level up the skill. Or I suppose I could lose both the Old Wound and the skill, but we'll see. All right. So let's see if I can get this in under the wire. I like to think I'm okay in terms of the speed of the space, but... So regret. Doesn't hurt to just click on the memory to see if anything else is eligible, but I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. We'll keep our wild surmise. And finally, we will get Denzel to open up the weeping chamber. Water trickles like tears from broken pipes in the ceiling, splashing over the cages that hang here. The floor is inches deep in water. The wind flutters mournfully in the cage bars. So we will see whether or not the upgrade came through in time. Overall, even though I bungled the Nameday riddle, I'm pretty happy with how the day has turned out. I guess the only other thing I could have done was I could have seen if... Well, I don't actually think I need knock against these, though. Yeah. Yeah, so the original sin was thinking that this was 3 knock, 3 moth, but I think the other problem is that I was off by 1 in terms of my counts, so I don't think I would have been able to make these work either. But we've got a pretty clear idea in terms of how the day is going to go, so I'm going to want to open up the sack of vegetables for potatoes to turn those into game chips. We've got everything that we need to set up the salon, so probably the Arab basically assures me that I'm going to be making 1 item a day, but I think at this point probably the health and the core will be pressed into service of preparing the salon. And then for reading books, I'm definitely not opposed to it. I'm probably going to want to think a little bit on what specific things I want to try and accomplish. So for instance, with something like the Fallen Cross, I've got 4 for bells and braziers, and I can get 5 from the astrolabe, but because I don't have Faust, I do actually need a memory. So the question then is, do I use one of my elements of the soul to bring someone like Denzel in, or do I wait for something like a sunny day? And, you know, by using that sunny day, do I give up an opportunity to level something else up? Those sorts of considerations. But yeah, we clearly have a number of different texts that I can read just to get... you know, in terms of establishing a baseline for certain skills, those are fine. And then, you know, I may want to get a little bit more aggressive in sort of pursuing these higher branches on the Tree of Wisdoms. Although, again, being able to commit a few of these to the tree as well is rather important. But all of that will be handled in a future episode. Thank you for watching this extended video. We should have one more for the week. I will see you then. Take care.